Thank you, Jenny, for this introduction. Today, I will talk a little bit about innovation districts in general first, really what goods look like and what it takes to get there. We've done a piece of work around global best practice and really understanding the key components that led to this success. So knowing that ABMC's vision is to be a globally significant innovation district in 2030, it's really important that we all understand what that means and what good looks like and what it takes to get there. We're all here in this webinar contributors to reaching this goal, hence it's so important of that as well. After that, I'll talk a little bit about LA Baltimore City in specific and some new developments. So we often use clusters, precinct, and innovation district interchangeable. And these three slides will show a nice visualization of that. And often an innovation district starts with a cluster and anchor institutes where other institutes co-localize around it. There's not a lot of collaboration happening. It's really clustering and co-localization. But then it matures further into like a precinct where there are more parties coming into the game, more SMEs, startup, venture capitalists, more industry, and you see the uplift at the bottom, you know, it states 20% here, the uplift in productivity. And if you mature further, you really mature into that innovation district. Again, more parties coming into the game. There's a lot of more SMEs. You attract a lot of entrepreneurs towards it, venture capitalists, new investments coming in, but also a real focus on multidisciplinary approaches and allowing residential and legal firms to enter your district. So this is just a slide that shows, you know, government all over the world are really heavily investing in districts like this. They all are aware that a sound R&D investment really produce valuable returns in the future. So this is OECD data, and it really shows that countries that heavily invest in R&D as a proportion compared to their GDP really tend to experience higher productivity growth. And if you look at our precinct, there are three key assets really essential, and that's physical assets. We talk about the buildings, the spaces, the infrastructure that really support collaboration and innovation and focus on that knowledge transfer. So we talk about infrastructure where research and industry come together in one space. The South Australian Genomics Centre is a good example of that, where agriculture, multidisciplinary approaches come together. And the second one is the knowledge and economic assets, the really research intensive institutes that really focus on that knowledge creation, and the networking as such, what people do in there. And looking at what we created when doing that research around global best practice is creating a heat map from the 7 factors of success. This is evidence-based reports we leveraged here. And it talks about what it helped us benchmarks against the world and also make strategic decision. So as you can see, the 7 factors are, you know, at the start really around leadership, culture, and collaboration. It talks about having the right governance structures in place and strategies. It talks about cross-government commitment to innovation, but also, it talks about infrastructure amenity, not only having high world-class infrastructure, but also having it easy accessible, not only to the researchers of one institute, but to researchers abroad, and also small firms that cannot afford it to allow them access. And at the end, you see the market drivers, competitive advantage, that really talks about if the products you deliver really have a strong market demand, and also if there are significant policies in place that help support our ecosystem. This is just quickly to highlight an example. I don't know if everybody knows a lot about Israel, but it's only a population of 9 million, and they've been really successful in new to the world innovations, and also companies spinning out of that and attracting large amount of investments. And I just want to highlight 2 things in here, and they're more the culture aspects of it. And that's the one at the left, being bold and embracing culture failure. And at the right, good spas. I don't know if I pronounce it right, first of all, but if you know it, but it stands for kind of bravery that really borders rudeness. The people say what they think. They don't worry about hurting anybody's feeling or looking silly or getting in trouble. And I think, you know, I hope we all in South Australia get a little bit more of this. And I think that would be really beneficial for our innovation districts. This shows all the key stakeholders. You can see that's quite a comprehensive, complex stakeholder landscape. And to be successful, you really rely on close collaboration between them. And they all are driven by their individual needs and individual KPIs, but the whole challenge is to collectively really seek for the best interest of all. And hence the importance that we're transforming within LA Biome City to a broader partnership model, which allows also for SMEs and industry partners to become formally partner of the districts, which is much in line with getting all the key stakeholders closer to us. And also there will be some transformation on board level, again, that allows more access of the different key stakeholders in there. If you look at this visual, this is what we use. We're working together with Lot 14, Tonsley and LA Biome City, together with the departments, the government departments, on building a value proposition, really looking, positioning as part of that innovation ecosystem. And, you know, I hope in the future that every researcher or leader that travels the globe and is presenting to a group of leaders or industry or investors really have a part of their slide deck and a pitch that they're part of this ecosystem and help to promote that further and show the importance of being part of that. A large focus of LA Biome City is around the convergence of emerging technologies, looking at the future of healthcare. It's very multidisciplinary. You know, that spans from biomedical engineering to photonics, artificial intelligence, robotics, AR and VR. We recently had a lot of conversation with the defense. They have a large biotech initiative, biotech defense initiative. We've been working a lot with AML, the Australian Institute for Machine Learning, and the larger AR VR groups. Going forward on that one, I think, you know, a lot of people are maybe not even familiar how what our research excellence is on the STEM fields. And this just shows the citation impact on medical science and engineering publication that we're, compared to the other states, really ranked position 1 on those, which is significant. Here I zoom in a little bit more on the developments currently happening. I think everybody's quite well aware of what's happening with the Australian Rec Centre. It's currently under construction. The bunker is being built already. It's anticipated to be completed in 2023. If we look at the new Women's and Children Hospital that will be moving within the Innovation District in a couple of years, that's currently went from planning phase to design phase. But there are also some other developments that are still in early stage, but like the Trinity Church and the BioHub, you probably read it in the news already. But that will allow us to grow further and allow us to really have industry closely co-localized within the districts. So these are our 5 strategic goals, together with a large group of diverse stakeholders within the district, and also the piece of work we did around the global significant innovation district. We work with the board and the key partners to define our strategy and our 5-year strategic goals. So it's around improve attractiveness, and that really emphasizes attractiveness being easily accessible for industry. And, you know, it can take in several cases months, even longer than that, to create partnership, but being ready to welcome partners. And it talks about it being attractive for talents. Implement open access models. That is really about infrastructure where research, industry all come together in one place, small, medium-sized entrepreneurs allowing to access these models as well, cost effectively. The third one is around growing innovation pipeline and accelerating the commercialization outcomes. So hence we've been working closely with, you know, partners like MTP Connect, MedTech SA, Biotech SA, some national forums to really closely work on engaging researchers with industry. Just to end, you know, this is just 8 minutes, very short. It just gives a quick snapshot, but yeah, please follow us on LinkedIn if you like to be up to date on what's happening. We also have the weekly mini reviews every Tuesday, like today, and different topic, a wide range from genomics to AI to allied health. Everything is passing. So we have they're all online on the website of Adelaide Biomed City, so you can always view them on a later stage. And we have some larger webinar, which we talk more about high-tech medical technologies. It's a 30-40 minute webinar, but you can find them online as well. You see that link in the button. So I really, encourage you to connect up with Adelaide Biomed City. And also, if you have any question, please reach out to me or go to our website, the contact form, and we are very welcome new ideas and initiatives and support those in the near future. I think that's it for me.
Yes, Yvette, thank you very much. Yvette, we've just got time for one question. The question being, what can ABMC offer researchers today, and how can this assistance be accessed?
One of the things I wanted to highlight, I haven't done in the presentation, we have been working closely with the government departments around getting an intermediary in place within Adelaide Biomed City. Last year, the government minister has announced some funding targeted to an intermediary role, and that's resources, budgetable resources that really can deliver certain services that are not yet in place. So that's coming very, very soon, hopefully. We literally are close to getting approval for that funding and being the first pilot innovation district for that. And furthermore, we really leverage some of the resources. We have a large network and contacts. So just reach out and we will connect you further within the organization. We're currently building, for example, a capability map where we can help people inside the precinct, but also outside, to easily navigate what our key capabilities are, who are the leaders in which areas. That's a piece of resource that will be, I think, highly valuable to the people listening here, but also outside our precinct. So that's coming soon as well. We have had a lot of feedback for people that really challenge to find the right people or the right capabilities or the right knowledge.
So watch this space, really, and contact your email for further information as it becomes available. Now, our second speaker this afternoon is Wendy Keech. Wendy is the CEO of Health Translation SA, a position she's held for about 3.5 years. Wendy will speak to us on Health Translation SA and the essential role it has in the South Australian research ecosystem. Over to you, Wendy.
Thanks, Jenny, and hi everyone. And great to follow after Yvette, because we work closely together and we really believe in the synergies that we need to have to make this whole thing work. So Health Translation SA, hopefully many of you are very familiar with it, is an NHMRC accredited translation centre. There are 10 of these across Australia, and this one was actually accredited in 2015. In 2018, we changed its name from the South Australian Academic Health Science and Translation Centre to Health Translation SA, and we picked up the tagline, Research, Action, Impact, because that's really what we're all about. We've got 8 partners at the moment, SA Health being one of them, and each of these partner organisations you can see on the screen have a member on our board. So we have SAHMRI, the 3 universities, the Aboriginal Health Council, the Adelaide Primary Health Network, and the Country SA Primary Health Network, and SA Health, as I mentioned, but including the Commission and Wellbeing SA, and all the local health networks across the state. So our big point of difference from ABMC is that we are statewide, and we actually really look at doing things that incorporate the whole state wherever possible, but really mobilising these 8 partners. Why are research translation centres needed in Australia? Well, the NHMRC, following the McEwen review back in 2013, decided they needed to set up research translation centres. And really it's about the 17 years that is on average to take only 14% of scientific discoveries to enter day-to-day clinical practice. And they also recognised that there was a pressing need to speed up the translation and scalability of research findings into clinical practice, policy and other actions to really improve health outcomes. there was also recognition that some research projects really don't focus on translation of their findings, but really focus on publication and just winning the next grant. And there was a need to really mobilise around the impact of the so what factor. There was also recognised that we needed to bring together academics, researchers, clinicians, policymakers to fast track action, and also to improve knowledge and understanding of the importance of research translation with all these groups. So really it was seen that it was time for a change, a time for a shake-up, and to really, I see it as really bringing the research world and the health service world much closer together, and to make sure that research is actually embedded through the health system, whether that's in primary care, Aboriginal health, or the mainstream health services in hospitals. There is a research translation pipeline that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I've got one version of it on the screen, but there are many. But there's no doubt that it's all about moving projects from their discovery phase right through to making an impact at the population level. Some of them start at different places along this pathway, but importantly, they all move along. Now, it's not always a straight line. Often there's many curves, but certainly they go through these phases to actually get to fruition. But what has been recognised is there are some valleys of death that are referred to. The valley between discovery and development, right there just before clinical trials. And then the next one, Valley 2, which really looks at the translation and commercialisation valley of death. Now, both of these are really important to recognise. You need a whole lot of different skills to get people moving along this pipeline and translating things from one to the next. So what is often perceived is that Health Translation SA is working at the far right end of this, really just around implementing things into patient care. But tonight I really want to say to you that we're working along the whole pipeline, but we're looking at people thinking about who are their next user, who are they giving their results to, who is the user that's going to use what they've discovered to actually put it into practice, with always the end game being in mind. So the actual end user being in mind, but also the next user, how it's being passed along, being in consideration. So importantly, this pipeline concept's an important one, and these translation centres have been created to try and move people more rapidly along this and avoid these valleys of death. ARA is the Australian Health Research Alliance, and on the screen now you can see the 10 other research translation centres that are around Australia. Health Translation SA was one of the first ones. There were 4 initially accredited, and we're really pleased to be accredited by the NHMRC because it actually was a very rigorous process that was done by international a panel that really continues to evaluate whether the partners within the centre are able to make the changes needed to really drive impact and to drive change across the system. So what we are all about, as I said, research, action, impact, and we're about, as I mentioned, bringing together researchers, academics, clinicians, service providers, system administrators, policymakers, and other interested parties, including consumers, to make sure that we can drive and change things to really fulfill our mission. We see ourselves as impact accelerators. So the NHMRC like to use this impact pathway to evaluate us. But what the important part of this story is that all of those stakeholders I just mentioned, researchers, consumers, policymakers, etc., need to be included at the start of the journey. Many people, many researchers do their work and get to the end and then come and see me and say, oh, we've got these fabulous outcomes. How can we get them into policy, or how can we get them into practice? Well, the reality is if people aren't on the journey with you, it becomes really hard. So you need to include whether it's consumers, whether it's clinicians, whether it's policymakers, and in the design phase. So right up the front when you're identifying the problem and identifying where to go with it. And then the rest of it often takes care of itself because they're involved in decision making along the whole pathway. So this is the current strategy that we're working to. This strategy actually wraps up on June 30th, and we are right now refreshing this strategy to make sure it is a coherent and really important strategy that can guide us for the next 3 years. So we're kicking off a new one on July 1st, but it's really a refresh of this. But our strategic priorities are to mobilise leadership and collaboration to strengthen research translation across South Australia. And we have a range of leadership activities which help us do that. Our next area is to develop statewide research translation pathway, and some of the things we do in that area are around data access and data analytic capacity, around improving research processes, clinical research processes, and making sure that consumers are involved. The next area that we have prioritised is around building expertise and capacity in research translation, and we have a wide range of capacity building initiatives across the state. And finally, we look at delivering and supporting state and national projects, and really have a range of flagship and also MRFF funded projects which are particularly demonstrating the methodology I've just talked about, including everyone, being collaborative, but really keeping the eye on impact and working out how the evidence and the research can be used and translated to actually have an impact. Some of our projects are in hospitals, some are in primary care, some are across the state, some are in country, but our flagships and also our MRF funded projects really demonstrate what we're on about. So in closing, I'd just like to say this little cartoon, I guess, represents what has been happening and what we'd actually like to ensure that South Australia is not doing this in the future. Good work, but I think we need just a little more detail right here in the place where everyone was building projects and doing research and then hoping that they would actually be put into practice and just hoping that a miracle occurs. We need to be much more strategic about that, and we look forward to working with you all and working with any of you on projects to develop. What we do have is fabulous connections where we can actually help people have the right people in the room at the start of their project. So Jenny, that's it for me, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks very much, Wendy. Great presentation, and I love the cartoon. I'll come to you next time I need a miracle sorted out. We do have a question. Can you give some specific examples of successful projects that have been funded through your pipeline? And that's a question from Tim Murphy.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Tim. Look, I can. One of the ones is a kidney project that's at the Royal Adelaide, based Janet Kelly and name escapes me. It'll come to me. Are working in the kidney space, looking at a whole range of activities to improve kidney care for Aboriginal people, and it's really resulted in new dialysis chairs and much better and much more coordinated and holistic care for patients. And it really was a very thorough process that went from identifying the problem, working with all the key stakeholders to actually come up with solutions and then putting those in place. But of course, the evidence base of what needed to happen from a research perspective was the starting point for that journey.
Thanks, Wendy. If there are researchers out there who are looking for some advice from HDSA, what's the best way of making contact with you?
Well, they certainly can contact me. They can certainly contact some of my staff and some of the people that are in our unit. We're based up at SAHMRI on level 8, but we're not just about SAHMRI. As I said, we've got strong roots into Flinders and UniSA and Adelaide Uni, and I do spend time across the whole thing. So if you were at Flinders, I'd be very happy to, although this is an ABMC event, but very happy to talk to people about it. And also we do have an ongoing newsletter. So if people aren't getting our monthly newsletter, I would encourage you to do it. Plus on our website, we have a lot of information about courses, about our projects, and about some of the things we're doing at the moment.
Great, thanks, Wendy. And I can absolutely recommend your monthly newsletter. It's a good read.
Yeah, Jen, can I just say one of the things we focused on last year in the clinical research governance area was actually looking at how do we try and supercharge the ethics and the governance processes around the state. And certainly that's an ongoing project, but we were able to really give the system a jolly good nudge to actually try to speed things up. Yes, we need to do more. Yes, we need to make it even better. But as a result of identifying the problem, bringing together all the right people, including leaders as well as the staff who were instrumental in doing that work, we're able to really position SA in a stronger place. Yes, we need to keep going, but we made some good progress. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Wendy. Well, thank you both, Yvette and Wendy, for your presentations and helping to guide us through an understanding of the differences between ABMC and HDSA. And I think you can see how they're very active on two slightly different plans, but plans that will actually come together to improve the whole health and medical research environment within South Australia. Thank you to all of you who joined us this afternoon for this particular mini-series. I think it's a bit like speed dating, but perhaps it's much more informative. And unlike speed dating, you'll be able to review the presentations via the ABMC website by the end of the week. If you would like to provide any feedback, comments regarding the session or its format, you can contact the ABMC via their website. Now, an advert for next week. Next Tuesday's presentation is focusing on allergies with Dr. Elid, Dr. Lee and Dr. Hisaria, with Dr. William Smith as the chair. So thank you all again for joining us this afternoon, and hopefully you'll be able to join us again next week. Thank you and goodbye.